Thank you, George, and I shall now prepare to expose myself on the skylight of the dining room. Hi, everybody. My name is Tom, and I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Tom.
My name is Tom. I'm an alcoholic and a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and if you're going to be an alcoholic, that's the best kind of alcoholic to be, is a member of the fellowship, because it gets kind of cold outside every once in a while. And it's good to have a place to come where you can get a little warmth and some understanding. And then, too, there are times, and this happens to be one of them, that I just have a desperate urge to tell somebody that I haven't had a drink all day long, and I really haven't. I mean, I haven't had anything to drink with alcohol in it all this day. By God, I'm going to applaud that, I'll tell you. Because that's a big deal, and I need to say that every once in a while. And you can't go, I can't go to the desk over at the motel and ask the girl to give me change for $1 and tell her, look, I haven't had a drink all day, you know. And she might call the cops, and I still am not comfortable with police after all these years. I want to thank whoever had anything to do with asking me to come up here. I can't say committee. That's what you usually say. You know, I want to thank the committee and all this kind of stuff. Because I didn't have the same experience that Vanoy had. I didn't get all these letters and phone calls and people driving 12 hours to come see me. I mean, there is one guy here from Grand Rapids. I don't think he came to see me, but he probably did know that I was on the program. So, I mean, you can figure out how much sense he's got, but... And of course, you know, when they said no coffee while I'm talking back there, I don't really give a damn whether you put the coffee away or not. I got 2 things of water, a Dr. Pepper, and a cup of coffee here. So, and a lot of that's due to Vanoy. I mean, after she shook him up this afternoon, you know. But I do want to thank you for having me here, and sometimes when I come to places like this, I wonder how I'm going to make contact with whoever's going to meet me when I get off the airplane. I never have really and truly had any trouble with it, except in Las Vegas one time, and that was just a kind of minor slip-up. I mean, we got straightened out, but I never have really had any trouble. I was out in North Hollywood not long ago, and there was a guy standing when I got off of a plane with Tom O.S. on it, O''S. He told me later that was the most embarrassing thing he'd ever done in his life. It was printed on a piece of cardboard, you know, but it's always been something like that. But when I got off the plane here Friday, nothing. I looked around the room trying to see if I could spot an alcoholic, and not a damn one in sight as far as... Well, they're hard to spot when they're sober, you know, I mean, and... But then I was overjoyed. There I saw Jackie and her crew clutching a sign saying, "Welcome to North Dakota, Vanoy." So I knew Vanoy. I mean, I've known her for some time, so I just went over and introduced myself to the Vanoy group. And it turned out that they decided they would let me ride to town with them, which was damn nice, I thought. I was glad they had a good welcoming group for Vanoy, because I figured she needed it. I mean, she got on a plane in Minneapolis and behaved herself. I mean, she was a perfect lady. She had a window seat, and all the way up here she read an article entitled is smoking interfering with your sex life? And hell, she don't even smoke. And I couldn't help wondering this afternoon when she was telling about all those meaningful relationships that she had, if she used to smoke back in those days. But anyway, I do thank all of you that had anything to do with me coming up here. I'm not going to mention anybody by name because then you might be able to take it out on them after I leave. And I want to thank all of you who are here tonight, too, really, because I'm 1,300 miles due north from home. And I'd hate like hell to come here and have nobody show up. So, you know, I'm really glad you're here, and glad you're here too, George. And I really don't know how it all happened. It would have been, I wish you all would have had me here at your first affair 5 years ago, because the further back I went, the more I knew about it. I mean, the older I get in age, the less I know about what really happened. And the longer I take to explain it. So so sit back and relax and get comfortable, and at the end of an hour and 15 minutes you can go get coffee anyway. I don't really know how it happened. I mean, just all of a sudden I was drinking. I think for one thing, you know, I always wanted to be like the big boy. I guess that's kind of natural. All young people want to be older until you get to be older, you know, and then you want to be younger. But I'm talking about when you're young, you want to be older. And I remember I started growing this mustache when I was 17 years old. And the only reason I ever started growing the mustache was I thought maybe it might make me look older. And I guess more sophisticated, although I don't know if I knew what that word sophisticated meant in those days. And I come from a little town of about 7,500 people, and back in those days, the merchants used to kind of lean against the front of their stores when there wasn't much business going on, talk to people that passed by. And I walked by one day, and one of the most respected and successful businessmen in town walked out from his store, put his arm around me, and kept walking down the street. And I thought, really, you know, this guy has spotted me for somebody that's really got it. And he said to me, he said, you must have been swimming in the river. I live right on the Mississippi River, and that's something we never do, is swim in the river. And I told him, I said, no, indeed, not me. I'd never swim in the river. He said, well, I noticed you got some minnow shit on your lip. And and you would have thought a guy as intelligent as I was would have picked up on that, you know, and realized that I wasn't making as much of an impression as I thought I was. But this is just the kind of a guy I was coming along. I was always sort of an intellectual fellow, you know, and I'm very educated also. I've got 2 college degrees, and of course my sponsor got me straightened out on that when I first got into AA. He pointed out that rectal thermometers have degrees, and everybody knows what they do with them. And but I really can't think of anything that is more of a drawback or a hindrance to any kind of meaningful sobriety in Alcoholics Anonymous than 2 college degrees. For crying out loud, high school is bad enough. But I wanted to be like one of the big boys, and so I guess that's why I drank, because the big boys were drinking. And as far as I could determine, The reason that they said they were drinking was because it made them feel good. And I felt all right to begin with. I mean, I never had any rough childhood, anything like that. There wasn't anything wrong with the way I felt. But the big boys said when they drank, they felt good. So I thought, well, hell, I might as well feel good too. And I drank, and it didn't work out that way at all. I just couldn't drink it. Well, first of all, I never had any instruction in how to drink. I'm a self-educated drunk. I sometimes think that maybe if I had been taught how to drink, things might have turned out different, although I don't give that an awful lot of thought. But I always drank out the bottle, for example, and I noticed, the longer I stay in Alcoholics Anonymous, the less people I see that drink out of the bottle. I mean, you'd be amazed at the number of people out there that are drinking out of glasses and fancy goblets, and I don't understand why. If you're going to drink the damn stuff, you might as well get it down as quick as you can, but anyway, that's the way I drank. I always had to have a chaser. And in the beginning, I'd take something fancy like a Coca-Cola, but I finally got reduced to water. And I'd take a shot of whiskey and a drink of water, and I never could get proper coordination between my brain and my stomach. I mean, there'd be a continual argument going on, Brain would say, I need some of that stuff, and stomach would say, don't put any of that damn stuff down here, And finally, the brain would get insistent enough that it needed it and say it's coming whether you want it or not. And the stomach says, well, just watch out because I ain't keeping it. And that's what had happened, I'd go ahead and drink it and whoop, 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 whoop. And what happened was I'd puke. Now, a lot of people don't like me to say that word. They say you ought to say you were sick at the stomach. But it's not the same thing. A lot of times I'd have a drink or two or three, and I would be sick at the stomach, so I know what it means. But then on the other hand, a lot of times I'd have a drink or two or three, and I'd feel just as good as I do right now, and I would clear blue sky, I'd puke. And anything you do over and over and over again, you get good at it, and I got good at puking. I did. I got so I could walk down the street and puke and never miss a step. And never get anything on me either. And later on I learned something else that's of interest to me, and that is that once you master a skill, you never entirely lose it. After I'd been in AA a good while, I have a son who's a West Point graduate that transferred to the Air Force, and he and his wife and their infant son came to visit us one time. And they brought the 24-hour flu bug along with them. And everybody in the house caught it. It was the first time in my life I had ever been sick sober. And you get sick with that stuff in all directions. And we don't have but one bathroom at home, and my son at that time was a navigator in the Air Force, and I told him, I really was embarrassed. I told him, I said, hell, if you're no better in the air than you are in the bathroom, the country's in a hell of a shape. But I was just as good as I was 20 years ago. I could be sitting at that round table in our dining room, get up and go do what I had to do neatly, and come back and not miss my turn to talk. And I don't think this had anything to do with me becoming an alcoholic except one thing, and I think that's important, and that's the only reason I mention it, and it is that I want to tell you that I started to drink. And that's terribly important to me because the only way a person can become an alcoholic is by drinking alcohol. There is no other way to become an alcoholic, and I simply want to let you know that I started to drink. And I think it's important, for me at any rate, to stand here and tell you that in order to be an alcoholic, you have to drink. Now, really, today, if you want to know the truth of the business, it's kind of an in thing to belong to Alcoholics Anonymous. I tell you, it's getting to be where it's kind of a social status thing. You almost have to have credentials to get into AA some places nowadays. But one thing has never changed, and that is that in order to be an alcoholic, you have to drink. And there's some people that I have a tremendous sympathy for, a tremendous pity even. And that's those people that would like to be an alcoholic so they could get in AA, but they won't drink. Or they won't give it a fair try. You know what I mean. You see, there are those people out there, and I really do truly pity them. I mean, because they like all the things that we've got here. They like all the love and the sharing and the hugging and the kissing and all the good, fine things that we got going in Alcoholics Anonymous, but they miss out on the point about drinking, and they won't give it a fair shake. I know people that'll drink and puke and quit, and you can't get anywhere that way. I mean, you got to, give it something, really. Put something into it. You see, just everybody can't be an alcoholic. In order to be an alcoholic, you have to have certain outstanding characteristics. You have to have courage and fortitude and determination and the capacity to envision a goal and let nothing keep you from achieving that goal. And some people can't pull it off, and I really do feel sorry for them, and so I just think that it's important for me to stand up here and tell you that if you're going to be an alcoholic, you got to drink. Being a neurotic might help, but it ain't enough by itself. And then while we're on that subject, there's another thing that a lot of people don't catch on to, and that is that in order to be a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, you got to quit. Now, there again, a lot of people like everything we got here, all the loving and the hugging and the kissing and the good stuff like that, but they miss out on the part about not drinking. And I don't think it's really their fault. I don't think we tell them the real truth when they first come here. There's too damn much suggestion going on. You see, there's a requirement for membership in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I didn't make it up. It was here when I got here. The requirement for membership in AA is a desire to stop drinking. Now, I think the trouble is that a lot of people don't understand what a desire is. I think a lot of people think that a desire is something that is okay if you got it, and if you don't have it, it's all right too. It don't make much difference one way or another, but that's not what a desire is. Now, I'm not sure that I knew what a desire was when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, but my wife straightened me out on what a desire is. And I don't know how this would apply to meaningful relationships, but back in my day when we were courting these gals, that's what they did with us, you see. They led us on and led us on and led us on, put a whole lot of ideas in our head and got us all ready for action, and then one day they drew a line and said, And what they really said now, if you ever stop to think about it, was, if you've decided you want what I got, and are willing to go to any lengths to get it, then you're ready to take certain steps. Of course, at some of these we balk. We thought we could find an easier, softer way. You see, that's a desire. Desire is a screaming, meanie itch to get the thing you desire, and you do anything in God's green earth to get it. And I'll tell you another thing about a desire. If you're going to have a desire, you got to have some kind of general idea of what it is you're going to desire in the first place. I mean, you can't just go out and sit in a field and desire. But like I say, this is kid drinking. I didn't keep this stuff up, and I don't think it had anything to do with me becoming an alcoholic, except it indicates the fact that I began to drink. I wanted to leave this dumb, stupid hick town that I was born in and still live in. I don't know whether this is condense the story or spring it out, but I left this town and eventually had to come back to it. And I am living in and have my office in the building that I was born in. And somebody was talking about how they wanted to be buried not long ago, and I said, well, if I had my way, I know I won't, but if I had my way, I'd like to be cremated and have somebody climb underneath the house and dig a hole and put the ashes underneath there, and then they could say he never went a damn place in his whole life. You know? But I wanted to leave this dumb hick town of Lake Providence, Louisiana, and go off and be a success and a hero. And you people have been really nice to me. I've thoroughly enjoyed the weekend. So for God's sakes, don't make liars out of yourself in an effort to try to make me feel better still by telling me you went through Lake Providence one time. Because nobody goes through Lake Providence. Where the hell would you be going? I mean, if you have a reason to go there, you might go there, but nobody goes through there. But anyway, I did. I left and went off to college, and I really looked forward with great anticipation to going to college, and I thought it was going to be a big deal, and it wasn't. I got off at college, and I was absolutely miserable. I was just like a fish out of water, however the hell that is. I never will forget one time shortly after I had got at college, and four couples of us one night went out for a steak dinner. And we were seated around a round table, and the waitress came around asking everybody what kind of dressing they wanted on their salad. And when she got to me, I said, Kraft. And you see, I'm going to have the same kind of trouble with y'all that I've had all my life. I mean, they all laughed at me, see? And right then and there, I developed a lifestyle that lasted until long after I got into Alcoholics Anonymous, and it was this, that whenever I said anything, I had to observe you closely to see how you understood it so I could decide how I meant it. And if you laughed, I was a comedian, and if you looked puzzled, I was a philosopher. I mean, so you see, I had already embarked on a new way of life, so to speak. And I was timid and shy when I got off in this new environment, and I really think that to be shy is a serious and major character defect. But I didn't know that back then, but I was ashamed of being shy, and I was ashamed of being timid, and I never would have admitted this to anybody, and especially I was timid in the presence of members of the opposite sex. And yet I felt some kind of urgent attraction towards them. And so, you know, I had set up a battlefield within me. I mean, the attraction to members of the opposite sex and the timidness that kept me from at least proposing the things I wished to do. Some of which I really didn't know how to do, but I discovered quite by accident that if I had a drink or two, it wasn't like back in the early days when I was a kid, that things changed. And basically what changed was I changed and people changed. And I could have a drink or two. And normally if I were to look at a crowd of people like you, only one of two thoughts would go through my mind. Do you threaten me or can I use you? But with a drink or two in me, all that changed. I became charming. That was the first thing that happened. I mean, and you can laugh at that, but that's a fact. I mean, and you could go ask some of your grandmothers, and they if they were honest and knew me in those days, they might admit it, you know. But I was charming, and you changed. You became friendly. I could tell by looking in your eyes that you were saying to me, Tom, come on out and be part of us. We want you out here with us. And I could do that, by golly. I could go out with a few drinks in me and genuinely participate in what you were doing. I mean genuinely participate in it. And this is something that I could not do sober. Sober, I was a nerd. But with a drink or two in me, by God, I was captivating. And you yourselves were charming, and I could go out and participate in the things that you did, and thoroughly enjoy them. And so I liked that. I liked to drink when I was around people. But it wasn't just when I was around people that I liked to drink. Sometimes I liked to drink when I was just by myself. When I was in New Orleans going to dental school, and I lived in an apartment building and on the second floor, and outside was what in the daytime was a kind of a crummy-looking scene. A couple of streetcar tracks and some scraggly old trees. But at night, by God, with a drink or two in me, it was beautiful. And I used to like to have a drink or two, or maybe three, and sit there by that window and look out at the sheer beauty of the night. And sometimes I'd get sweet music on the radio and I'd cry, and I love to cry. I don't mean bawl, but I mean just fill up right to here with real hot tears and have them flow over my lids and course down my cheeks. And I always did think that there was something beautiful about having a drink or two or three and feeling good and being sad. And I used to like to have a drink or two or three sometimes and talk to myself in the mirror. You know, I would smooth my hair back like that and I'd say, you're all right. Some of this mirror looking was in the nude too, by the way. We must have some nude mirror lookers in the room tonight. I detest the term teenager because it simply signifies a period in life in which sexual changes begin to take place. And it's been commercialized to the point where it's just downright disgusting. The growth period between childhood and adulthood is properly called adolescence, and it lasts from 13 to 30. And I'm firmly convinced tonight that if a person goes through the pain, both the external and the internal pain that is involved in making the transition from 13 to 30, that it will grow that person up into some kind of maturity and they can deal with the world around them effectively as an adult. I honestly believe that. But thoroughly by chance, entirely by chance, beyond my wildest dreams, with no previous forethought or even suspicion on my part, I had found a shortcut. I was able early on to say this to adolescents. And of course at 21 I became what I now today call a public adult. That's a guy that knows how to drive a car or, vote, do all these kind of things. Has nothing in the world to do with a grown-up adult. And we got a lot of them hanging around that ain't alcoholics. But I mean, I found the shortcut. I didn't need to go through all this suffering. All I had to do was have a drink or two. And the whole environment in which I lived changed immediately. And I became a person who had a secret, and still has it, that is almost beyond value. I was able to manipulate to my own advantage what external reality did to me. I could make it beautiful or gray or solid or vapor or whatever I wanted. I could control my variety, my environment. And I liked it, and so I pursued it as a way of life. It's no accident to me how I became an alcoholic. I mean, I didn't just fall over one day and became an alcoholic. No, sirree. I discovered something that I liked that was right to my making. There was a shortcut. And to hell with all this crap that my parents and the preachers and the teachers and the other people were telling me. I want to go right straight to where I wanted to go, and by God, it took me there. So I began on this course of using alcohol as a resource with which to meet life. And that ain't a bad deal at all. Except it's got a built-in hook to it, and everybody should know what the hook is. The hook is this, that if you're going to use alcohol as a resource with which to meet life, you should know now that you have to increase the dose with the passage of time, not to get ahead, but just to stay even. I'm going to go a step further and say that I believe that if you're going to use anything as a resource with which to meet life, you have to increase the dose with the passage of time, not to get ahead, but just to keep even. I think that's why in the 11th step it says that we seek through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understand. Because I have no guarantee whatsoever that the knowledge and conscious contact that I have with God tonight will be adequate for tomorrow. The dose has to be increased as time goes on. And it sure has to do that with alcohol, I can guarantee you. And that to me, of course, is the essence of the illness of alcoholism. I now am caught with a resource with which to meet life that I have to increase the dose as time goes on. And there's only so much alcohol I can take without beginning to manifest drunken behavior. And I think it's important to distinguish between the illness of alcoholism and drunken behavior because they're not necessarily the same at all. I've got a friend who says somewhat irreverently that you can take the most pious old sister on the front row at any church and slap a few slugs of that Gallo Muscatel in her like he used to drink, and she'll become antisocial as hell. And that's a fact. I mean, you drink a certain amount of alcohol, you do become antisocial, and it's a peculiar thing about the society that we live in, and it's this. Alcohol is deeply rooted in Western culture, in the world that we're born into. It even has sacramental uses, for God's sake. It has social uses. It has ceremonial uses. And you can be an embezzler or an adulterer, and the society that you live in will tolerate you and accept you, but they will not tolerate you if you are a chronic drunk. That just happens to be all there is to it. And even when I was younger, you know, I used to take girls to the movies. That's what we used to do back in those days, and then go home and sit in front of an open gas fire and have a lot of hot thoughts on your mind and take a drink or two or three before you went to her house, and then sitting there in front of that gas fire, you know, and your head start to swim around like that. And I'd get sick and go back to my old tricks and throw up and on her mother's new carpet. You'd think as many times as I threw up on carpets of girls that I was dating that I'd throw up on an old one sometime, but I never did. It was always on a brand new carpet, and mothers don't like that. And so I kept increasing the dose, and I had built up, really, I had achieved all those things that I'd set out to achieve. I had my degree in dentistry. I was in the regular Army. I was overseas on a sensitive diplomatic mission in the regular Army, you know, on the general staff. All those things that they say that alcoholics want, money, power, prestige, I had them all right in the palm of my hand. Early 30s. And it all began to fall apart. And I never could make the connection between the way my life was falling to pieces and the fact that I was drinking the way I was drinking. It was a long time before I could find out why I couldn't make the connection, and I'm not going to tell you tonight, but I know why tonight. And so I kept on drinking and kept on drinking, and my life kept falling apart, falling apart, falling apart, falling apart. I just never could put the two together. I was a real honest-to-God success, and people started talking ugly about me. They said I smelled bad. Well, there came a time in my drinking career when I quit bathing. Didn't taper off, I just quit. But there was a reason for that. I had a traumatic experience that brought that about, and I don't see any here. Maybe it's getting out of fashion because I haven't seen them in several places that I've been to lately, but a lot of times you see these tough, macho motorcycle guys with the leather jackets on, you know, and I always think to myself that this message is especially for you. I've got a wife that I don't care what's wrong with you, her first suggestion is you take a good hot bath. Now, I think when you've been in Alcoholics Anonymous as long as I've been, you have to have some relative values that you're going to live by, and I want to tell you that I've got some. I also want to tell you tonight that I will take a bath. Don't let's get confused about that. But it's way the hell down on my scale of values. I can think about 14 things I'd rather do than take a good hot bath right now. But she is still and was then an advocate of a good hot bath. And she conned me into taking a good hot bath this Saturday afternoon, and I got in there and was just beginning to relax when it dawned on me that I didn't have enough booze to last for the weekend. And it was about 9:15, and I was living in San Antonio, Texas at that time, and the Texas liquor stores closed at 10 o'clock on Saturday night, and they didn't open until 6 o'clock again until 6 o'clock Monday morning. And I jumped out that tub and went to go down there to get my weekend supply, and that woman had stolen my britches. And at that time, I didn't know much about prayer because I didn't have anybody to pray to, but I found somebody to pray to real quick. I got down on my knees and I prayed to her to give me back my britches. And she gave them back to me at the last possible moment. And the message I have for the tough motorcycle guys is, I don't care how tough you think you are, if you're a man, you ain't nothing without your britches. And I finally got them back and put them on, nothing else, just the pants, dashed down the hill to the liquor store, ran in like mad trying to look cool, and bought my weekend supply of whiskey and came on back home. And I may have been sick and stupid, but my mother didn't raise a damn fool, so that was the end of my bathing. I just give it up. That's all I had to do. And I'll tell you another thing, I didn't come to AA on Monday and start bathing on Tuesday either. I mean, sometimes we try to get these things going too quick when we get to AA, and I don't think that's the way to do it. Actually, when I hear people say, when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, they were standing there with their arms outstretched saying, we love you and we've been waiting for you. My group didn't do that. My group wasn't happy to see me coming at all. Actually, they held meetings to see if there was some legitimate way they could keep me from coming to AA. They did. They brought in people from other groups to try to explore those possibilities. That was one thing that got me. You see, we're a cross-section of the society that we live in, and we got some wonderful people in Alcoholics Anonymous. We also got some bastards here. And I learned almost from day one that ain't no bastard can kick me out of Alcoholics Anonymous. This this is the first place I have ever been in my whole entire life that there ain't a damn one of you can kick me out. I'm the only one who can do it myself. And I got no intentions of leaving. But they weren't glad to see me come at all, and when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, you never had any trouble getting a seat at a meeting that I was at. I mean, there was always one in front and back and on either side, vacant. Well, you see, when I came here, there was something crawling on me. And I spent a lot of time looking for it, and that made a lot of people nervous, and towards the end of my drinking, I had developed some muscle spasms. I could be standing up talking to you, and all of a sudden, out would go my hand just like that. My foot would do the same thing. A lot of times I'd be walking down the street, and I'd go to the foot. Didn't bother me a bit. As a matter of fact, I missed it when it went away. But I'd be sitting there in that meeting looking for whatever it was that was crawling on me, and I'd have one of those spasms, and everybody would think I had found it. And when I came back to the United States, I knew I was in some kind of trouble, and I went to an Army doctor that was well thought of, and I told him I thought I might be an alcoholic. I don't know where I got that word from, but that's what I told him. I said I thought I might be an alcoholic. He really was well thought of, the son of a bitch. Excuse me. Not that I have a resentment against him. I was a captain in the dental corps at the time, and he said to me, "I'm glad you came to me. Just last week I cured a major general." So he was just my man, you see. They put me in a hospital, and they stuck a lot of needles in me and out me and up me. And the cure didn't take. And for a long time I thought it was because I was just a captain. And I'm not trying to be funny either. I can remember walking down the street and saying to myself, man, if I were just somebody else, all this wouldn't be happening to me. And I got all the same help that you all got. They said to me, why don't you drink like Bill? Bill is a bald-headed brother-in-law of mine. I've been sober in Alcoholics Anonymous for 27 years, and I feel about Bill tonight exactly as I did 37 years. I don't want to do anything like Bill. And besides, how do you drink like Bill? Now look. You don't have to pay a whole lot of attention to what I'm saying up here, because if you disagree with what I'm saying, you got a constitutional right to be wrong. But I'm going to stand here and tell you that I don't believe that Alcoholics Anonymous has got the answer to your problem. Now, they used to tell me, get right with God. And I got the same answer tonight that I got the same question tonight that I had 27 years ago. How do you do it? How do you do it, you see? And that's the reason I'm standing here saying that I don't believe that Alcoholics Anonymous has got the answer to your problem. And the reason I say that is there's no chapter in the book titled There's an Answer. The title of the chapter is There's a Solution. And this is what we've got in Alcoholics Anonymous. We've got a time-tested, experience-proved solution, and you've got to put you in the solution and come up with your own answer. And I swear I believe that perhaps may be the true glory of this fellowship, that we don't pretend to have an answer. Because I really believe that not only in the area of alcoholism, but including that surely, but that the trouble with the whole stupid world that we live in is that every Tom, Dick, and Harry you run into has got the answer to your problem, and they don't even know what your dumb problem is. And in Alcoholics Anonymous, we don't pretend to do that. What we have an experience proved, experience tested, time proved solution, and you have to put you in the solution and come up with your own answer. And then they tried to scare me into not drinking. I don't think you can scare an alcoholic into not drinking. That reminds me of a story that I got absolutely no business in the world telling, but I'm going to tell anyway. It's about a little boy that his mama caught him playing with himself, and she gave him a doomsday lecture. She said, that'll make you go blind. And he said, well, could I keep on doing it just till I have to wear glasses? And you see, that's almost a textbook definition of what it is to be an alcoholic. If it ever really gets bad, I'll quit. Now you could take 100 people and put them in a hospital and inject all 100 of them routinely over a sufficient period of time with heroin, and all 100 of them would become addicted. And everybody knows that. There's no argument about it. It's just an accepted fact of life. You take another 100 people and put them in a controlled setting and feed them booze long enough, and only 6 of them will become alcoholics. And all 6 of them will be convinced down to the marrow of their bone that they're one of the remaining 94. And so I went on down all the way, and I'm not going to tell you how I went on down. It really is a beautiful story. I like to tell it because it gets to me, but I don't have time, or at least I'm not going to take time, you know. There's a line in the booklet, Living Sober, and it says this. It says, if you get on a bus whose destination is a place 1,000 miles distant and you don't get off the bus and turn around, sooner or later you'll arrive at the destination 1,000 miles distant. And that's just all the hell there is to it. I didn't get off the bus. And so I went all the way, and I lost everything I had. I lost my wife, family, children, job, money, you know, all these things. I was reduced to the level of a street bum in the streets of the city of San Antonio. And finally, because there was nothing else left to do, I went back to this dumb little hick town of Lake Providence, Louisiana, that I left once to be a success and a hero. And I hitchhiked into Lake Providence one Labor Day weekend on a Tasty Bird poultry truck. And I went back there and became the town drunk. We don't have town drunks anymore because the culture has shifted. We moved out to the suburbs. I mean, we don't have any downtown to have town drunks in. So we've got shopping mall drunks and supermarket drunks and condominium drunks and parking lot drunks. And we're a strange group of people, really, if you stop to think about it. I mean, we don't mind going in the condominiums and the parking lots and the shopping malls and the supermarket and getting drunk as a skunk and passing out and throwing all over the place, and don't bother us a bit. And then one day we decided we're going to come to Alcoholics Anonymous and straighten up and live decent lives as ladies and gentlemen. And the very first thing we do is, shh, don't tell nobody. So that's our deal with you about the anonymity part. You're here and you're getting ready to embark on the greatest adventure that you could ever imagine. To become real men and real women, real human beings, and we're not going to tell anybody. that's happening. So finally I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. I had already been exposed to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I want to tell this because there's a reason I want to tell it. And I've been trying to say this for a long time, and I wish I could find a nice way to say it, but it comes out ugly every time I say it. I mean, and I don't know how to put it the way that it would come out genteel. The reason I say it is every place I go, it seems that I hear at least one person say, "But I don't like AA." You know what my response to that is, who the hell cares whether you like it or not? We ain't running no damn charm school here, for Christ's sake. I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. My wife told on me. And she went out and got a guy, and he came in the old classical manner and sat down by the bed and told me his stupid story, and I went to AA. And I don't know how long I went. I say that I went more than 6 months and less than 2 years. I could figure it out closer than that, but it is not that important. The thing is that I went a significant period of time. And one night I walked out the door and didn't come back. Now look, I didn't walk out with the intention of not coming back. I don't remember a specific night of saying I'm not coming back. I didn't leave because I thought it would work or wouldn't work, anything like that. I just did the simplest thing. There's nothing to it. Just walk out that door and never come back. That's all the hell there is to it. And that's what I did. But when I walked out that door, I still had all the things that I held sacred to me in my life. I had my wife, I had the family, I had the job, the money, the car, the home, all the things that I had worked so hard to attain. I came back 5 years later, I had $1.35 in my pocket, and that was it. And that's why I say that if you don't like AA and you're an alcoholic like I am, you damn well better sit out there and learn to like it. If for only one reason. It may be the only game in town. That's the thing about it, see. I ain't trying to sell wine and roses to you. I'm talking about rock bottom gut living. And Alcoholics Anonymous for an alcoholic like me truly was the last place that there was. So I finally came back to Alcoholics Anonymous. I came back because a guy asked me to come back. I hear people having these big discussions about what are you going to say when you go talk to somebody, the prospect for AA. Well, this guy just came and asked me to come back. That's all. I would have gone any place. I'd gone back to live with my mother. She'd died. I was in this big house all by myself. At the end of my drinking career, I'd run out of friends and enemies at the same time. You think just because you don't have any friends, you're in bad trouble. Where do you run out of enemies too? A lot of people think that love and hate are opposites. They're not. The opposite of love is indifference. Love and hate have a lot in common. One thing is that you're bound to the object of your emotion by one just as much as you are the other. You're just as bound to somebody that you hate as you are to somebody that you love. That's how I sponsor people. I can't get them to love me, and I know that, but I can get them to hate me. And that way they can't get me off their mind, you know. And it works. It really and truly does. And so I came back to Alcoholics Anonymous because this guy asked me to come back. And this time when I came back, I did everything wrong except two things. I kept coming back and I didn't take a drink. First thing I tried to do was I tried to go out and sober up the whole county that I lived in. That's not exactly true. I wanted to go out and change the lifestyle of the whole county that I lived in. Because it didn't make any difference whether you had a drinking problem or not. I wanted you to listen to what I had to say about life in general. had one old tattered suit and 2 shirts, and I was out making the rounds trying to convert successful people into alcoholics so I could get them in AA. And I never will forget how happy I was with that 1 suit and those 2 shirts. I'd been sober in AA for about 3 years, and Sid and Roebuck had a sale, and I bought 6 shirts. And my life never has been the same since then. That was the most stupid mistake I ever made in my life. And get up in the morning and decide which of 8 shirts I'm going to wear. But I kept coming back to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I had said all the way along, I said, I might take all these steps, but I'll guarantee one thing, I'll never take that 5th step. I'm never going to tell another human being all the stuff that I ever did. And I know I'm running a little late and I'm just rushing like hell. I mean, but I just got to say a couple of things here for reasons that are peculiar to me. And I'll admit that I'm peculiar. But anyway, when I was about 8 years old, I was an altar boy in the Catholic Church, and one day I stole $1 off the collection plate. And I got caught and punished. But I couldn't accept the punishment nor the forgiveness. And so I carried this thing with me around the world. And I was in the regular army, and many a night in places like Rome or Cairo or Paris or Tokyo or wherever. Just as I'd be able to be about to drop off to sleep, up would pop this buck. And I'm not saying it had anything really to do with my drinking, but it did have a lot to do with any lack of meaningful serenity. But I had made up my mind that I never would tell anybody about stealing that $1, and I never will forget how delighted I was when the priest died. Because now there's nobody left but me, you see. And then I came here to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I ran into some of you loose-mouthed people. Well, that's a fact. Some of you people sit around and in casual conversation tell things that no sane human being would tell to their lawyer or minister. And I thought to myself, I'm going to tell somebody about stealing that buck. And that's when I learned something about Alcoholics Anonymous. I often wonder what people who are outside AA think when they, by chance, see people in AA at work. Because you see 4 AAs at a table and all of them talking, you think there's a lot of conversation and communication going on, but there's not. There's 4 monologues taking place is what's happening. Everybody's just sitting there in neutral waiting for somebody to take a deep breath so they can submarine in and take total charge. And I found out that it's almost impossible in Alcoholics Anonymous to tell somebody what a rat you are. You go up to somebody and you say, look, I want to tell you what a rat I am, and say, wait a minute, let me tell you what a rat I am. And I couldn't tell anybody about stealing that $1. You know, I remember one night I said to myself at home, I pounded on the dresser like that. I said, by God, I'm going to keep going back to Alcoholics Anonymous until I'm gray-headed, but I'm going to tell somebody about stealing that $1. So when the time came, I was delighted to find somebody that would shut up. And let me tell them all these things about myself that I've been wanting to tell somebody all my life. And I knew I was taking a big risk. I was well aware of that. I was very well aware of the fact that the guy I picked out after I got about 10 minutes into it would said, wait a minute, it's true that we deal with the dregs of society, but we actually didn't have people like you in mind. But of course he didn't do that. He let me put the whole pile of crap right on top of his desk. And when he was through, he looked me right straight in the eye and he said, well, you know that we love you. And for the first time in my life, I had experienced unconditional acceptance. I didn't have to make an A to be accepted. I didn't have to be an all-state fullback to be accepted. I was accepted just as a human being, as another person who was in trouble and trying to make it in this world, and accepted fully and with no condition. And that was the afternoon that I began on this adventure that I told you about, the adventure of growing into a free human being. And it has been truly an adventure. It's been an adventure that has been sustained by you. It's been full of pain. I had to go back and pick up all the pain that I bypassed as an adolescent. It's been full of trouble. It's had disaster in it. But let me tell you something. We talk a lot about alcoholism, and there is a chapter in the book called More About Alcoholism. But there's only one real definition of alcoholism that I know of that's in the whole big book. And that's on page 44, the first chapter in chapter 4, We Agnostics. Basically what it says is this. It says if when you honestly want to quit, you find you cannot quit entirely, or if when drinking you have little control over the amount you take, you're probably alcoholic. This is me to a T. This is me all over. But there's still more in the paragraph. It says, if that be the case, you may be suffering from an illness. And that still isn't the end of the sentence. What kind of illness? What's the nature of the illness? Come on out with it, book. Tell it to me. You may be suffering from an illness which only a spiritual experience can conquer. It don't say that psychotherapy will conquer it, nor the treatment centers, nor charm schools, nor psychoanalysis, nor reality therapy. It says you may be suffering from an illness which only a spiritual experience. And so this is what's happened to me in Alcoholics Anonymous with your help. I've gone through this program a day at a time the best way I can. And back on page 569, it sums it up, and I really am ready to quit now when I get to page 569, because there aren't that many more pages. The last couple of lines down there say this, and I think these things are earth-shattering, these lines. I'm going to say them twice, and then I'm going to sit down. It says, with few exceptions, our members discover that they have tapped an unsuspected inner resource which they presently come to identify with their own concept of a power greater than themselves. Many of us believe that the awareness of this power is the essence of a spiritual experience. Our more religious members call it God consciousness. Just listen to what the words are saying. With few exceptions, our members discover that they have tapped an unsuspected inner resource, which they presently come to identify with their own concept of a power greater than themselves. Many of us believe that the awareness of this power is the essence of a spiritual experience. Our more religious members call it God consciousness. This is the thing that you have helped me bring about in my life. I can think of no greater gift that one human being could give to another than to support them through the pain and the difficulties and the tribulations that are involved in bringing this unsuspected resource into reality in one's life. You've been my support, my mainstay. You've been the ones that have held me up until I could walk alone with the discovery of this. For this I thank you very, 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 very much.